Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of Cases That Should Have Gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Today we're talking about cross-border taxes. Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. If you manufacture goods in Alberta, sell them in British Columbia from your place of business in Alberta, you're required to collect BC's provincial sales tax and remit it to the province of British Columbia, even though you're carrying on business from Alberta. These laws were challenged by Fitter International, who brought their application to challenge the laws in Alberta, arguing that BC didn't have the right to legislate on taxes that impacted an Alberta business and required an Alberta business to collect and remit tax to the BC government. The court in Alberta dismissed his challenge, not on the basis that BC necessarily had the right to tax people outside of BC carrying on business outside of BC, but instead on the basis that an Alberta court doesn't have the authority to determine the constitutional validity of legislation in British Columbia. There's a doctrine of Crown immunity in relation to interprovincial legislation, where legislation that applies in British Columbia can't be challenged in Alberta, and so on and so forth. Fitter International argued that this doctrine was unjust, because as a person in Alberta, running a business in Alberta, required to collect tax in Alberta but pay it to the BC government, he was effectively affected by the legislation in Alberta, and thus the Alberta courts ought to have jurisdiction to hear it. And this case raises very important issues. If it is truly an issue of the business dealings and workings in Alberta, is it not something over which the Alberta courts could have jurisdiction? And can't the Alberta courts and the Alberta government presumably stop British Columbia from legislating outside its boundaries? The issues of interprovincial trade have been the types of things that have historically gone to the Supreme Court of Canada for determination. The liquor crossing borders cases recently, for example, a good example of cases where the Supreme Court of Canada took the opportunity to hear about interprovincial trade and the regulation of interprovincial trade, and now we have another example as far as interprovincial taxation goes. And this case has the potential to broadly impact other cases across Canada, as we see other provinces enact sales tax laws similar to that of BC's, and charge sales tax in provinces where sales tax doesn't exist, and collect money based on the operations of a company not inside its provincial borders. These are significant issues. It also affects the business dealings of individuals all across the country who may not know about their certain tax obligations when carrying on business from their home province, but shipping to or selling inventory in other provinces. The Supreme Court of Canada hearing this case might have raised more public attention to the issue to avoid the potential that individuals might fall into tax problems as a result of not collecting or remitting tax to the appropriate provincial authorities. And as business is being conducted more and more based on online sales, where borders don't really seem to exist, isn't it important to determine whether these laws are still effective or important or useful or helpful, really achieve their goals? This was things that the Supreme Court of Canada could have engaged in and could have provided more insight into some of the tax laws in this country that impact the relationships between provinces. It's unfortunate that the Supreme Court of Canada didn't take the opportunity to hear this case and to determine where the appropriate place of litigation should be, challenging legislation that affects you in one province but is related to your activities in another. Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada but didn't. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cases That Should Have Gone to the Supreme Court of Canada but didn't. I'm Kyla Lee at Acumen Law Corporation. Thank you to Brazen Bull Creative for putting together these videos. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.